Hey! Hi! How you doing? This is the Gamertron, and welcome back to the Gamertron Show. Now, I'm sure after reading the title of this video, one of the most immediate and understandable reactions would be, well, isn't that narrow-minded? Who am I to dictate to you what your priority should be when playing video games? Fun should always be your priority when playing video games? Well, isn't that egotistical and pretentious? However, if you'll hear me out for a moment and explain my point of view, I think there's an interesting discussion to be had here concerning video games. Now, what got me contemplating this was, as usual, when it comes to a great deal of my commentary videos, certain reactions and behaviors and opinions shared online. And let's just say I've been seeing the rise of some very interesting priorities and what certain gamers are desiring to get out of video games. Now, call me crazy, but from my perspective, from my point of view, when it comes to video games, while they are many things, products, works of art, I've always seen them mainly as an outlet for entertainment. You buy video games, you play video games to have fun, to enjoy yourself. Now maybe I'm just uninformed, I'm ignorant, and there was a massive transition and revision that I just didn't get the memo on, that video games now have to make political statements, they have to challenge you and have debates with you on politics? That they now must all contain deep, emotional, complex narratives? And that now apparently all video games must strive for innovation, originality, and revolutionize the entire industry and medium. Color me curious about this perception and prioritization of how to engage with video games. Now don't misunderstand me, I'm not saying video games can't address political topics, political issues. If that is the kind of game the developers want to make, they are more than free to do so. I'm also not saying that if a video game is advertising itself to be story-focused, story-heavy, then it is an understandable expectation to have quality writing in said game. And lastly, I'm not saying that video games shouldn't attempt to innovate, to be original, to not just copy-paste the same mechanics and features and archetypes for how to make a certain kind of game in any particular genre. I'm not saying any of that. I'm not denouncing any of that. That's all perfectly fine and dandy. Totally understandable positions to have. However, prioritizing these things going into every video game? Well, I have a hunch that's a tad unrealistic. Now, of course, different consumers want different things. It's important to acknowledge that. But I'm seeing more and more on the internet, not just in YouTube comment sections, not just on Reddit and on Twitter, but YouTube content creators prioritizing these things we just talked about over my personal main priority and the priority I would hope of others, since this is the priority games were born on back in their inception years ago. Is this video game fun? Can I have fun in this video game? While I admittedly can be enraptured in political debate, can be immensely satisfied by a deep, complex tale, and relish the feeling of astonishment when I encounter something truly new and original in a video game. But if we're all being totally honest with ourselves, life is short, life is dark. Life can be depressing and demotivating depending on where you live and what your situation is. And the beautiful thing about video games is that they represent a perfect format for escapism. It doesn't matter if the game is realistic or immersive, just the act of playing the game and enjoying the act of playing the game can be a great uplifting feeling. I can't tell you the number of comments I've gotten on my videos over the years of people telling me how important video games are to them, how video games have gotten them through some dark times in their lives. So while there is intrigue and passion behind politics, satisfaction in consuming a well-written story, and awe to be inspired in innovation and originality, while all these things and more are welcome additions to any video game if handled in a quality manner. In the end, however, from my personal experience after playing hundreds of video games, those things, those elements, those aspects do not matter in the grand scheme of, is the game fun to play? Examples include Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. Objectively, it's a well-crafted product, with great writing and storytelling and character development and voice acting. That's all great, that's all quality. The game, however, is a bore. It's a chore to play. It's not fun to play. Why video games thrive as a form of entertainment is their interactivity, how the player interacts and affects the in-game world and sandbox. You can't goof around in Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. You can't play your own way. While Everybody's Gone to the Rapture has a deep, well-written story and characters and great voice acting, that all doesn't add up to a fun, enjoyable experience as a video game. Everybody's Gone to the Rapture would have fared much better as a movie or a novel. But in the format of a video game, where they designed it to be story first, gameplay last, instead of having the two intertwine and merge and work off of one another, well, this is only my opinion, but to me, it creates a less memorable, less enjoyable experience that gives me little reason to return, to revisit, to replay said video game. If you make a video game and you prioritize story above all else, even over the gameplay, well, at that point the question must be asked, is your story really worth telling through a video game? Would it not be better suited to film or a written novel? When you look at a story-focused game like Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, if we're being honest, what is it about the story of that game that could have only been told and presented via a video game format? From my point of view, I don't see it. Now, to present a more positive example, look at a video game like The Vanishing of Ethan Carter. That story could have only been told and represented and presented in a video game format. And because the gameplay was not sacrificed for the sake of the story, The Vanishing of Ethan Carter is actually a fun game. You can have fun playing this game while also enjoying the unique story presented in said video game. Now, switching back over to a more negative example, this time prioritizing innovation and originality, well, honestly, I don't have any specific examples, because these words, originality and innovation, they've been corrupted and poisoned and misused for years. The critiques, the negative remarks, the slights towards video games using the phrases lack of innovation, lack of originality, are really admissions of, I don't know how to properly critique or criticize a video game, so I'm going to make these blanket, vapid, meaningless, negative remarks about the game without actually explaining how lack of originality or lack of innovation actually is a detriment to said game or a detriment to its quality. After doing research on certain individuals and critics and reviewers who constantly use the phrases lack of originality, lack of innovation to negatively describe certain video games, I see a pattern of egomania, cynicism, and pessimism. While I will agree with the argument that actual innovation and actual originality can improve any particular video game experience, the lack of innovation and the lack of originality doesn't automatically mean a lack of quality or a lack of passion in terms of the objective quality and the intentions and efforts of the video game developers. Now, to provide a more positive example of how video games can get away with not being original or innovative, one may only look at the video game Ruiner. Ruiner, as a video game, doesn't have a single original or innovative bone in its body. Everything Ruiner does has been done before. Its gameplay, graphics, art style, story. We've seen it all before, but you know what? None of that stops Ruiner from being an absolute blast to play. Now, some more mainstream AAA video game examples of this. We can simply look at the big mainstream AAA first-person shooter juggernaut that is Call of Duty. While all of the recent past Call of Duty games over the past several years have had their flaws, quite a few flaws, I wouldn't call innovation or originality one of their flaws. Just looking at sales numbers and player numbers, it's obvious that the Call of Duty franchise has a winning gameplay formula. People have fun playing these games, we can't deny that. Despite their lack of innovation and originality, people still buy and play these games and have fun with them. Now, for the sake of being fair, I'm going to provide some positive examples of video games that are both critically acclaimed and fun to play that include innovation and originality. Nier Automata, Middle-earth, Shadow of Mordor, and its sequel, Shadow of War, Titanfall 2, and those are all just recent games. Looking back in the past, we have Max Payne, Portal, Prince of Persia, Deus Ex, and so many more. So without a doubt, innovation and originality within the true meaning of these words can absolutely improve the quality of a video game, provide an overall better piece of art and product. Not every video game developer is striving for that. Not every video game developer wants to make that. Some developers want to improve and experiment with an established formula that they've already developed. Some developers want to make a game that's an homage to a video game they loved growing up. And some developers just want to make a game that they find fun. There is originality and innovation in video games aplenty, and if it's your priority to seek it out, so be it. But I implore you to have reasonable expectations. Not every video game is trying to, nor should they be expected to raise the bar. And now, I save the worst one for last. Prioritizing politics, political debate, taking a political stance in video games. I'm gonna be blunt and honest about this.
How about new?
If we're all being honest with ourselves, I mean really truly honest with ourselves, the vast majority of gamers don't give a shit about politics. As a matter of fact, they're playing video games to not be reminded of politics. And the vocal minority, the radical few who really care about having politics shoved into their video games, are Polygon and video game journalists in general, alongside B. Dobbins for the win, aka social justice warriors.
And I was curious to see what else they had to say in that questline, and the points it made through satire were hilarious, specifically because of their real-world significance. And GTA 5 ended up being the best-selling game of all time.
My god, man! You're a year older than me! How do you not understand that correlation does not imply causation? Look, if you prioritize and you value and you look for politics in your video games, you need to understand you are a minority. You are a minority. I'm gonna say it one more time. You are a minority. You do not represent the majority. And unfortunately for you, the vast majority of gamers don't want politics in their video games, don't want their video games to push a political agenda, and unfortunately for you, the vast majority of video game developers aren't interested in pushing a political agenda, despite the rantings and ravings and lunacy and paranoia of certain YouTuber content creators. Are you starting to understand and see my perspective here? How is wanting video games to focus so much on the story and narrative that it basically becomes a movie, and you're no longer playing a game? Fun. How is that fun? How is having lofty expectations that every video game you buy and play has to be a revolution, has to be mind-blowing? How is that fun? It seems more like you're setting yourself up for disappointment, constant disappointment. And finally, of course, how is politics fun? When have politics ever been fun? Politics are depressing and anxiety and anger-inducing. Politics divide and ostracize and antagonize people. How is that fun? Why would you want that in your video games? Granted, when it comes to politics, there are far more nuanced interpretations of the definition and how it's implemented into video games. I will admit that. But the kind of politics being demanded be implemented in video games from outlets like Polygon and B. Dobbins for the win is not your typical politics. Simply just presenting ideas and concepts of certain aspects attaining to politics and political beliefs, but what they're demanding for is propaganda, and having their biases confirmed, having their political biases and their political stance validated, to virtue signal on the altar of social justice. However, again, I'll admit, this is far more nuanced and complicated than that. I won't simply try to boil it down to some basic bitch definition and solution. There's a discussion to be had here. There's a debate to be had here. And while that may be productive, in the end, however, how is that fun? How does that help us enjoy our video games more? You see, the special and unique thing about video games that it has above all other medias and forms of storytelling is that unlike a bad movie or a bad book, watching a bad movie or reading a bad book, these can be negative experiences that you want to avoid. But the wonderful, special thing about video games is that even with a bad video game, you can still have fun with it. And adding to that, you can even have fun with video games that you don't particularly like. Some personal examples include Resident Evil, Operation Raccoon City. I can admit, objectively, it's not a good game. It's a game of poor quality. But despite that, I still enjoyed the game. I still had fun with the game, despite it being, well, a bad game. Because even in a bad video game, you can have fun with the gameplay. You can make your own fun goofing around, exploiting certain mechanics. Experiment with what limits the game puts on you. No matter how deeply flawed a video game can be, you can still have fun playing it. You can make your own fun in a video game. Now, another personal example, but this time around a video game that is objectively good, it's a quality game, but I personally don't like it almost at all, The Elder Scrolls Online. Even though I don't like the game, I still had fun playing it with friends. Fighting dungeon bosses together, searching for loot and exploring the open world. Even though I don't like the game at all in a lot of ways, I still had fun playing it. That's the beauty, that's the power of video games, that you can play a bad video game and still have fun with it, that you can play a video game that you don't like and still have fun with it. Now, this isn't unanimous for every single video game, of course. But this is one of the many reasons I prioritize fun over every other aspect of a video game. And why I would argue that you look into prioritizing fun in a video game above all else. Okay, sure, this game has pretty graphics. Okay, sure, this game has a good story. Is it fun to play though? Is the game fun to play? The vast majority of people, the vast majority of consumers, the vast majority of gamers, when experiencing the visuals, the graphics, and the story of a video game are most likely going to have similar reactions and interpretations of those moments of spectacle with the graphics and the story, but you will see pretty visuals in other forms of media and art. You will hear and absorb other great stories in other forms of media and art. But the unique and individual moments of joy you have playing a game, those are gonna be one of a kind and special to you. Something you can't get anywhere else in any other form of media and storytelling. When you have your own action hero moment in a first-person or third-person shooter, when you remain undetected and pull off a perfect stealth run, when you just nearly get to first place by the skin of your teeth in a racing game, when it all finally clicks for you and you finally put together and solve a difficult puzzle in a puzzle game. These moments of joy and entertainment you can't get anywhere else. They are exclusive to video games. Politics, deep stories, innovation, and originality, these are all constants. They're not going anywhere. And they're not exclusive or unique to video games, but the gameplay and the unique one-of-a-kind moments of fun, joy, entertainment that you can have from video games, that is unique, that is special. And that is why, from my point of view, from my perspective, why we should prioritize fun in our video games above all else. However, these are just my thoughts, feelings, and opinions. What are yours? Let me know in the comment section down below. I love reading comments. To get nearly enough comments, please leave a comment. If you want to help out and support this video, then please share it on social media, Twitter and Facebook, and hit the like button. And if you want to help out and support me directly, well, there's always Patreon. Anyways, guys, that's been a video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you all later.